The village in it with a map and a plan. No place too tiny for this determined man. Crossing the counties one by one, he'll see in every English corner a bit of history.
Hello folks, welcome back to Cherwell for parish number 5. I'll tell you what, one way to tell that you are in a very, very rural place is if on the parish notice board you find something like this. This is a map of the village and it shows you where all the houses are and all the houses' names as well. It's useful, of course, if you're a visitor like me, but of course I'm not really interested in any of the houses apart from maybe one of them, which we'll get to in a bit. Here I'm interested in the church, I'm interested in the old schoolroom and the playground and a few other bits and bobs. This is the parish of Noke. Noke at the Oak Tree. Wrapping up the week in Oxfordshire, we're back on the edge of Otmoor and we're about to visit the 5th of its 7 towns. Beckley and Horton-cum-Studley will have to wait until another time, but last on our list in this run is the cute little village of Noke. Noke occupies the majority of a dead-end lane about 5 miles northeast of Oxford. It's on the southeastern edge of Otmoor and its name derives from Old English, literally meaning at the oak trees. Trees and woodlands still play a massive part in its modern makeup. The parish has 2 woodlands in fact, Prattle Wood about 500 yards southwest of the village and Noke Wood about a mile to the southeast. Landmarks wise, this one hasn't got a great deal. There was a church at Noke by at least 1191 when a priest was first recorded. The present parish church of St Giles dates from approximately 1270. Next to that is a former national school. There are no written records of any public houses in Noke before 1800. In the 1840s, there was one pub called the Marlborough Arms, a name that refers to the local landowning family. By 1955, there was an inn called the Plough, but today Noke is a dry village. Well, dry in terms of alcohol anyway, because of course Otmoor keeps it wet otherwise. Noke, like many of the other villages that line Otmoor's edge, played a key role in the Otmoor riots. The events of the 1830s, which we discussed at length earlier in the week, are immortalised here in a poem called I Went to Noke. Well folks, I went to Noke and this is what I found. Noke is a little village in a backwater of Oxfordshire. Not a lot of people know it's here, and even fewer will know of its church. That's our start point. Noke has had a parish church since 1191, but the present building of St Giles dates from the first half of the 13th century. At the end of the 16th century, a mortuary chapel was added for the Winchcombe family on the northern side of the church. The chapel was built by Joan Bradshaw for herself and members of the Winchcombe family. Her grandson, Benedict Winchcombe, repaired it and left money to repair the church, the chancel of which had been ruinous in 1584. In 1745, the Winchcombe Chapel, whose upkeep had become the responsibility of the whole family, was so dilapidated that it was endangering the chancel. It was pulled down and its door in the north wall was stopped up. What remains today is a small building comprising a nave and a chancel and a small bellcote above the western gable. There's also a south porch and the whole thing is primarily in the early English Gothic style, with many repairs and alterations through the years. Both the chancel with its double lancet window in the south wall and the chancel arch are probably 13th century. On either side of the arch are 2 14th or 15th century niches. Further repairs took place in the 18th and 19th centuries, and the last restoration was undertaken by the Oxford architect William Wilkinson. Okay, so when you walk into the church, your eyes are drawn usually into the chancel, but really you should be looking at the font here, because this has a very interesting piece of history to tell. And you can see there's a note on the cover of the font here which tells us what that piece of history is. I'll read it to you if you can't see it from where the camera is. The font is believed to be the gift of Princess Gunreda, or spelt Gundrensen, the youngest daughter of William the Conqueror, Lady of the Manor in Noke in the 11th century when the church was built. The wooden cover is Victorian. You become a member of the church by being baptised with holy water from the font, and it's still used for baptisms today. And I was just about to leave the church, people, and I noticed this on the door. It's an equation saying 20 plus C plus M plus B plus 24. Now, when I went to school, you couldn't add letters and numbers together, but that actually means something, and there's a little note underneath to tell us what this is all about. This is something called chalking the door. So let me just move the camera closer because this is really small to see. Chalking the door at Epiphany, traditionally a 12th night activity to ask God to bless our church, homes and visitors. A physical reminder that in our comings and goings, our conversations, our work and play, and our joys and sorrows, God is with us. And this is what the C, M and B stand for. Caspar, Melchior and Balthazar, the three kings. There we go, based on a Latin blessing. Next door to the church is a former national school, and this was probably one of the smallest schools in Oxfordshire. During the 18th century there was no school in Noke, although by 1833 there was a Sunday school with 18 pupils. In 1863 Noke Parochial School was built on land belonging to the Duke of Marlborough by the Reverend John Carlyle. He endowed it in the same year with £200. In 1871 the average attendance was 18. From 1904 onwards the county council assumed responsibility for the school. The school was reorganised for junior pupils only in 1931 when the seniors were transferred to Gosford Hill and Marston, although some went to Dr South's school in Islip as well. In 1946 the school was closed, and today it's a private house. The rest of this walk is an amble from one end of Noke to the other. The school and the church are at the western end of what is a dead-end road. We can form a circular route here though, because when we reach the other end, a footpath will take us back to the start, emerging as it does between the church and the school. Noke is a small village about 5 miles northeast of Oxford on the southeast edge of Otmoor. It's known as one of the 7 towns, and by visiting it we've now seen 5 of them. Noke literally means at the oak trees. The parish still has 2 woodlands, Prattle Wood about 500 yards southwest of the village and Noke Wood about 1 mile to the southeast. Some land within the parish formed part of Edward the Confessor's gift to Westminster Abbey, and Noke has been connected with the Dean and Chapter of Westminster at various periods in its history. As late as 1800, the Dean and Chapter claimed the overlordship of Noke, and villagers were required to attend formal readings of documents in Islip, mainly concerning tithes. It's had some pretty famous people live within its parish boundaries. For a start, the Victorian painter William Logsdale lived in Noke from 1922 to 1944, and his presence here is commemorated by a blue plaque on his former home, the Manor House. As of 2020, the writer, actor and director Simon Evans lives in the village too. Noke used to have at least 2 public houses in its time, but they've closed now. It does have a small recreation ground though, if you know where to find it. Okay, so once you get past the manor house, you're virtually all the way through the village. There's not much more after this. There's a handful of houses, but not really much more. There is a recreation ground though, if you know where to go. Okay, so just after the recreation ground, the road doesn't come to an end, but it becomes a private road. So we can't go any further. It leads to Lower Farm and Hill End Farm only. And Hill End Farm has actually got a bit of a claim to fame. They had the best large flock of black Welsh mountain sheep in 2012, according to this. So yeah. So where do we go then if we can't go up there? Well, we've got a choice. We can either go that way towards a wood, or we can go this way back towards the beginning, and that's where we're going. Did you ever have that feeling of instant regret? I'm feeling it right now, because this path is really sludgy and I'm just basically trying to keep on my own 2 feet as best I can. It's very difficult. It's a long old path. It runs all the way back to the church and to the schoolhouse where we began. So yeah, I think I'll probably just keep the camera off as much as possible along here. I don't want to fall over and injure myself, of course. Now, on our way back to the car, we have to discuss Noke's involvement in the Otmoor riots. As we know, in the 1830s, local landowners attempted to enclose and drain Otmoor. The agricultural workers of the area resisted this, tearing down fences and destroying drainage works. There's no need to go into detail about it again. Watch the Charlton on Otmoor video to learn more. Now, it's taken us 5 episodes, but finally we have a view of Otmoor. This is only part of it. Remember, it's some 990 acres all told. It's absolutely beautiful, and these camera shots definitely don't do it justice. Noke's status as one of the 7 towns earned it a place not just in Otmoor's history, but in the history of English literature. You see, the dispute was recorded in the poem I Went to Noke, which perfectly sums up how agents were paid to visit the villages and find out the names of the persons involved in the night raids. It goes a little like this. I went to Noke, but nobody spoke. I went to Tame, it was just the same. Burford and Brill were silent and still, but I went to Beckley and they spoke directly. Let's head south now past Prattle Wood. Both Prattle Wood and Noke Wood form part of the history of the village and the surrounding area. They are woodlands which bordered the parish in the Middle Ages, and they're ancient. They are today the only remaining woodlands from what used to be quite an extensive blanket of trees in the area. As with all ancient forests and woodlands, they have tales to tell, but if Prattle and Noke do, they're secrets, it would seem. I found nothing of any note about either. Still, it can't be denied that both are important to the history of Noke. If you continue down the road, you'll reach Beckley, which was at the other end of the Roman road over Otmoor, which began in Fencott. Beckley has a massive mansion to talk about when we reach that place, but Noke has quite a notable house too, right on the border. Earlier we saw a private track that led to Lowerwood's farmhouse. There's a second track off this road which leads to it as well. It's a Grade 2 listed building dating from the early 17th century, and it was formerly known as Leicester's. It was reputedly a hunting lodge. That figures. I mean, with all the trees in the area, hunting would have been a pretty favourable sport centuries back out here. Of course, we can't get to it, but I figured it was still worth inclusion nonetheless. And so that's really that for Noke, and with it the end of this run around Otmoor. We've had a great week down here, haven't we? I always love my trips to Oxfordshire, and it'll be great to continue the Cherwell district in the future. 5 down, 74 to go. I'll see you all later. just before I go, remember, this video is part of a huge project to visit every civil parish in England. That's more than 10,000. These routes are pre-planned, and due to time constraints, I can't cover every detail or walk down every street. Please don't complain if this video missed something out. I pronounce names how I choose to. I am very aware that local dialect may vary, and I don't take kindly to criticism about this. You've been warned. It's impossible to know everything too. If this video was terrible, make your own. If you're a regular watcher of The Village Idiot, you're not the only one. If you've got a small business, why not use my videos to advertise it? Leave a comment below if you're interested. And finally, thanks for watching this episode, everybody. Give us a like and a subscribe if you've enjoyed this episode, and share it with your friends and relatives. It all helps to keep this mission going. Until next time, I've been Andy, also known as The Village Idiot, and I'm out.